Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to look at how to solve quadratic equations using three methods. So we'll look at completing the square method, the factorization method, as well as the quadratic formula method. Okay. Now, before we get started, if you're new to this channel, my name is Abdul Wahab Animoko, and I'm a college math instructor. In this channel, we'll discuss everything mathematics, college level mathematics, mostly for undergraduate students. So let's get right into it. Okay. So in this problem, you're trying to solve, we're trying to complete the square for the first problem. So let's look at the first problem. So we are going to use completing the square method to solve the first problem, the first three problems basically. And then I think these are quite easy. And I think here we'll learn how to use factorization. And here we'll also use factorization as well as formula method. So let's get right into it. So for the first problem, how do we use completing the square method to solve a quadratic equation? So looking at the problem, so we have 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 equal to 0. Now, one thing you have to know with all quadratic equations is, in general, you have ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, where a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. So in this case, a should be equal to 2. So if you look at this, a is equal to 2, b is equal to minus 3, c equal to minus 2. Now, this information will be very useful later on when we're using the formula method. Now, for the completing the square method, this is how you generally approach the problem. The first thing you do is you want to make the coefficient of x squared 1, and that is the first step. If the coefficient was 1, then you move to the next step basically. So let's look at this. The coefficient is 2, so what we do is we divide through by 2. Now when you do that, you're going to get x squared minus 3 over 2x minus 1 equal to 0. So this is the first step. Now you're ready to complete the square. What you do is, completing the square involves completing this part. Okay, so what you do is you put x on one side, and then we divide the coefficient of x by 2. Okay, so which means the coefficient of x is minus 3 over 2. When we divide this by 2, that should give us minus 3 over 4. So we are going to put this together with x, and we square it. And of course, we have to make amends for what we've just done, which entails that what we subtract the square of the same, so we subtract the square of this same number from the square. Now, we still have minus 1 here, and it's equal to 0. Now, what it means is this particular term that we have here is actually equal to this. Now, you can expand it to figure that what they're actually the same thing. So let's just come here and look into that. So I'll do this for just this problem, and let's see if this is actually true. Now, when we expand this, this is x minus 3 over 4, x minus 3 over 4, then minus 3 over 4 squared. So what you see is, when you multiply this, x times x, this gives us x squared. X times minus 3 over 4 will give minus 3 over 4x. The other one, minus 3 over 4 times x, is minus 3 over 4x. And then minus 3 over 4 times 3 over minus 3 over 4, that will give us plus 3 over 4 squared. Then we still have minus 3 over 4, the last term. Okay, so this is the expansion of this square, right? Now, when you look at this, when you add this together, this gives us x squared minus 3 over 4x minus 3 over 4x minus 3 over 4x. That's minus so that's minus 6x over 4. So you can basically do the maths. Then you can notice that what plus 3 over 4 square minus 3 over 4 square will cancel out. That will be 0. So this basically, this is what you have left, and this is 6 over 4 can be simplified towards 3 over 2x. As you can see, this whole term, like I said, will be equal to those two terms before it. Now, and this is the idea of completing the square method. Now that we are here, we can just simply continue now. So, and this is what you do every single time. You take the other terms to the other side. So when you take this to the other side, it becomes plus 3 over 4 square plus 1. And then you can quickly simplify this to what? 9 over 16 plus 1, which when you take the LCM, it will give us 9 plus 16, which is 25 over 16. So what then happens from here is, in order to get rid of the square, you take the square root of both sides. Remember, you're looking for x. Take the square root of both sides, and then you have x minus 3 over 4 equal to square root of what? 25 over 16, and this is plus or minus 5 over 4. So therefore, x would now be, when you take minus 3 over 4 to the other side, you have 3 over 4 plus or minus 5 over 4. And now the two solutions would be 3 over 4 plus 5 over 4, which gives us 8 over 4, which is equal to 2. Or the other solution, which is 3 over 4 minus 5 over 4, which is minus 2 over 4. So let's create some space. Minus 2 over 4, which is actually minus 1 over 2. So the solutions are x equal to 2 or minus 1 over 2. So that's the solution to the first problem. Now let's move on to the second problem. Now the second problem is basically saying, we should work with x squared plus 3x equal to 4. So this is the second problem, x squared plus 3x equal to 4. Now what you do is, you can basically complete the square directly from here, because remember, in completing the square we need these two terms, right? X squared and the other term that has x on it. But notice that the coefficient of x squared is actually 1 here, so you don't need to divide through by anything. You just go right ahead to the second step, which is completing the square itself. And what do? Remember, we divide the coefficient of x by 2, which will give us 3 over 2. So, and that's what you're going to attach to x. The coefficient of x is plus 3, divided by 2, you have 3 over 2. So we attach it to x and we square this. And don't forget, we have to take into account that we have to also subtract the square of that same number. Right now, this is just the completing the square, which means this term x squared plus 3x is actually equivalent to this square that we have. Okay, and this must be equal to 4. Don't forget the 4. And now what we do is we take this to the other side, and once we do that, we have this, and then we need to now simplify this. This is 9 over 4. 3 over 2 squared is 9 over 4, and that gives us, LCM is 4, so that's 16 plus 9 again, we have 25 over 4. Now we are back to simplifying this, which is x plus 3 over 2. You take the square root of both sides, that's square root of 25 over 4. Remember that notice that the square root will cancel the square on the left hand side, okay? And then this is basically equal to plus or minus 5 over 2. Okay, now we can make x a better formula by taking minus 3 over 2 to the other side to give us minus 3 over 2 plus or minus 5 over 2, which means your x is minus 3 over 2 plus 5 over 2, which gives us minus 3 plus 5 is 2, which gives us 1, or x is equal to minus 3 over 2 minus 5 over 2, which is minus 8 over 2, which is minus 4. So the two solutions would be 1 or, so 1 or minus 4. Okay, now that is the solution to the second one. I think at this juncture, you can just pause the video and try to solve the third problem using the completing the square method. Okay, now we are going to look at the third problem, and the third problem is simply 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. Okay, so let's look at the third one. 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. Again, in this third problem, notice that the coefficient of x squared is 2, it's not 1. So what do we do first? I can hear you saying it, we divide through by 2. So when you divide through by 2, what happens is you have x squared plus 3x over 2 plus 1 over 2 equal to 0. Okay, now you are ready to complete the square, which is basically you divide the coefficient of x by 2, and that gives us 3 over 4. So that will give us, that's what you're going to attach to x, and you square it, and don't forget to subtract the same number square. Okay, and then we still have plus 1 over 2 here. Okay, this part is equivalent to this part. Don't forget this. Okay, now let's simplify this. So now you have 3 over 4 squared. Take every other thing to the other side. So that will be 3 over 4 square minus 1 over 2. Don't forget the signs. If you have minus here, when you take it to this side, it becomes plus. And if you have plus here, you take it to this side, it becomes minus. Okay. All right. So from here, everything here is now simplification. So 3 over 4 square is 9 over 16 minus 1 over 2. So that gives us 16, 9 minus 8. Okay. That is 1 over 16. Okay. So what do you do next? You just take the square root of both sides. If you do that, that would give you square root of 1 over 16, which is just 1 over, don't forget the plus or minus 1 over 4. And now you're ready to finish the problem by taking this to this side, right? If you do that, you have minus 3 over 4. Don't forget plus or minus 1 over 4, which means the solutions that you have is minus 3 over 4 plus 1 over 4, which will give us minus 2 over 4, which is minus 1 over 2, or the second solution, which is minus 3 over 4 minus 1 over 4. And this would give us minus 4 over 4, which is minus 1. So your solution set is minus 1 over 2 or minus 1. Right. Okay. Now, these three problems have been solved using the completing the square method. I hope you like this method. Certainly, it's not my first choice to solve quadratic equations, but it's very helpful. In some problems, it actually simplifies the work, right? There's some more higher level mathematics that this method becomes very, very useful to use. Now, let's look at the other problems. Now, the deep part is quite easy. I think an average Joe can solve this problem. So let's see. It's basically solved for us. We just need to find the values of x. So let's look at it. So the D part, so let me quickly write it and then zoom out to this. It says equal to 0. So what do we do? Now this is quite easy. They have already factorized the quadratic equation for you. So that means when you have two numbers multiplying each other and they are 0, it means that either one of the two numbers must be 0 or both of them are 0, right? That's what it means. So it means either this is equal to 0 or 3x minus 1 equal to 0. And from here, we can solve for x. And x will be minus 3 over 2. And from here, you can also solve for x, and x is 1 over 3. So the solutions for x are this, quite easy. Okay, what about the next problem? The next problem says 2x squared minus 5 equal to 3. So let's look at that. Okay, the next problem says 2x squared. So I think this is the problem. Okay, now in solving this, of course, you notice that there is no coefficient of x here. We don't have any term concerning x here, only x squared, right? So this gives us a hint that this can be solved in a much easier fashion, right? And there are a couple of ways you can actually solve this problem. The first one, let me just show you the two ways. The first one is you take 5 to this side, and you have 3 plus 5, which is 8, and divide both sides by 2, and this x squared becomes 8 over 2, which is 4. So you have x squared equal to 4. Then take square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus 2. Right? This is one way to solve it. The other way is you move the 3 to this side. So instead you move 3 to this side, you have minus 5 minus 3 equal to 0. And you have 2x squared minus 8 equal to 0. Then you factorize, right? So 2 is common, so you can factorize that. So when you divide both sides by 2, what you have left is this. Now this is completing the square. This is difference of 2 squares. So you can write the 4 as 2 squared. And from here, you can have x minus 2, x plus 2 equal to 0, which means x minus 2 is 0 or x plus 2 equal to 0. And these two equations would give us what? X equal to 2, x equal to minus 2, which is the same thing as before, right? Now it depends on which one you would like to use. I think most people will go with the first one, so it's quite cool. It's fine. Now let's look at some other problem, which is the next one, which is 3x squared plus x minus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so let's look at this problem. So now we're going to use factorization method to solve this. And how do we use factorization to solve this? Now, factorization method, these are the steps. So just follow the steps as I show you and make sure that you use that in other problems that you might encounter. Okay. So now what you do is the first step is you multiply the coefficient of x squared with the constant. So you multiply 3 and what? Minus 2. So the coefficient of x squared multiplied by the constant. Remember, the constant comes with the sign in front of it. And this will give us minus 6. Now, the next step is, let's look for two factors of 6 with the right signs, such that when we add those two factors together, we'll have plus 3. Now, you have a couple of choices. You know, the only way you can get this is multiplying 3 and 2, or you multiply 1 and 6. These are the two choices. And from these two choices, you can try to figure out which one would give us plus 1. It turns out that it has to come from 3 and 2, right? If you notice. Now, what must be the signs in front of it? Since the sign here is positive, it means the positive one must be the higher number, right? So therefore, we'll put plus here and we'll put minus here. Now, think about it. When you now multiply these two, you have minus 6. When you multiply 3 and so 3 times minus 2, I'll get minus 6. When I add them, plus 3 minus 2, I'll get plus 1. So it satisfies the conditions that we are looking for. So you're basically looking for factors of this number, which we got from multiplying the coefficient of x squared and the constant together. And we are looking for these factors such that when we add these factors together, it will give us the coefficient of x, which is plus 1. And then when we multiply them together, it should give us the same minus 6. So we got plus 3 minus 2. Now what we'll now do is we'll replace this 1x with what? Plus 3x with the new factors that we got, minus 2x. So the reason why we're looking for these two numbers is because we want to use those two numbers to replace the middle term, which is the term with the x, right? So basically we are constructing the coefficient of x using this method. And then we have minus 2 equal to 0. Okay. So what do you do from here? You just factorize now. Factorize the first two, factorize the second two. So when you factorize this, 3x is common. What is left is x plus 1. Then when you look at this, minus 2 is common. It has to come, the number has to come with the sign in front of it. So minus 2, then we pick x is remaining, then the sign will now change to what? Plus 1. Now, if you do this correctly, this term will always be equal to the 1 inside here. So that can give you an idea of how to proceed in doing this. Okay, equal to 0. Then we factorize again. We bring the 3x and minus 2 together, and then the x plus 1. You see, x plus 1 is common to the two terms. That's why we take it out, and what is left is 3x minus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so from here we are back to solving this, which means 3x minus 2 equal to 0. or x plus 1 equal to 0. This implies x is what? 2 over 3, x equal to minus 1. So this would be the solution set using using factorization method for this problem. Okay, I hope you understand how this works now. So we are going to look at the last problem, and in the last problem we're going to use so probably before we look at the last problem, let's just use quadratic formula to solve this same problem. Okay, now what is the quadratic formula? It says that if you have in the general form, right, of a quadratic equation, now the solution to this quadratic equation is given by minus b plus or minus square root of what? B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, do your due diligence not to forget this formula. You have to memorize it. Now, the division is all through from the beginning of minus b all the way towards square root of b squared minus 4ac. Now, let's look at this particular problem. 3x squared plus x minus 2 equal to 0. Now, our a is the coefficient of x squared, which is 3. Our b is the coefficient of x, which is 1. Our c is the constant, which is minus 3. Okay. Now, we just need to substitute these numbers into the equation, into this formula, right? So minus b, b is 1. So don't forget, sometimes b could be negative, and we will have to, let's say this was, let's say b was minus 1 here, we would need to put an additional minus here. So just be careful about that, okay? Most students will just ignore that there might be double minus here, which will now lead to this term being plus. You are not such a student, so be very careful when you're working with this. So we have minus b, which is minus 1, plus or minus square root of what? B square, which is 1 square minus 4. Now, I like to put bracket around the numbers here because you might make sign mistake if you don't do that. Now, our a is 3 and our c is minus 2. You see what I'm saying? Now, c has minus 2. If you don't put bracket around the terms, you might make sign mistake. Then all over 2a, which is 2 times 3. So now we have minus 1 plus or minus square root of 1, then minus 4 times 3 times minus 2. That will give us plus, because minus times minus is plus. Now 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 2, 24, all over 6. So that will give square root of 25 all over 6. Now I think it's making perfect sense. So let's complete this. Now you can quickly see that what this is square root of 25 is 5 over 6. Then our first solution will be minus 1 plus 5 over 6, which would be 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3, which is what we got before. And the second solution would be minus 1 minus 5 over 6, which would give us minus 6 over 6, which is minus 1. Perfect. Okay, so this is how we solve the problem using quadratic formula. So you just have to be careful with this formula. It's very powerful, but you could easily make mistake if you don't understand how to put the numbers and take advantage of the formula without making a sign mistake, right? So the signs are very, very important. So that's why have a habit of putting things inside bracket. Now let's quickly look at the last problem. All right, so the last problem says 8x squared minus 6x plus 1 equal to 0. So how do we solve this? So we're going to use factorization method. So what happens is we multiply, don't forget, the coefficient of x squared and the constant, which is 8 times 1, and that will give us 8. Now we'll be looking for factors of 8 that will give us, that when we add together, it will give us minus 6. How can we get 8? We can get 8 from 1 times 8 and also from 2 times 4, okay? So those are the possible ways we can get 8, right? So now we need to also look at how to put the right signs in order for us to get what we are looking for. So our main aim is when we multiply these two numbers, we get plus 8, and when we add them together, we get minus 6, right? Okay, so it turns out that what it has to be -4 -2, right? When you add these two together, you get -6, and when you multiply them, you get +8. So what do we do next? We now replace the middle term -6x with what? -2x - 4x. And now I know some of you will be thinking, all right, this is true, but does the order matter? I mean, will this give us the same answer as this? And the answer to that is yes, right? We can do it both ways so that you can see that it works. Or I will do the first one, then you try the second one out as an exercise. So let's just look at this one. So what is common to these two terms? So we factorize the first two terms, and also we factorize the last two terms. Now the first two terms, what is common is 2x. Now what is left is 4x - 1. Then in this term, nothing is common, so it's just 1, right? Remember, it has to come with the sign in front of the first term, which is -4. So it's going to be -1. Then basically what will be here is still 4x. Then we are going to have -1. Now notice that even without properly checking, because I have gotten my factors right, I could easily just write 4x - 1 here, without without being afraid whether this will be correct or not, because I know that what if I have 4x - 1 here, I should have 4x - 1 here. So when you factorize and you see that what you have, you've taken the right numbers, the right number out -1, which is there's nothing common between 4x and 1 except 1, right? When you put that -1 out, now you can easily just put the numbers that you have here inside the bracket, and then you multiply out to see if it gives us -4x + 1. So that's a simple trick that you can use to check. So what I mean is you can just multiply -1 times 4x, and that will give us -4x. Then -1 times -1, that will give us +1, right? And that tells you that what you've done is correct. Okay, let's just continue. Now here we can now factorize things out again. 4x - 1 is common, so take it out, and what is left is 2x - 1 equal to 0. Now this means, or 2x - 1 equal to 0. And what does this give us? X equal to 1/4, or x equal to 1/2. Okay. And now as your exercise, try to use this to arrive at the same conclusion, as well as use the quadratic formula. So this would be your exercise. So make sure you do that, and let me know in the comment below if it works out well for you. If you have any other question pertaining to how I've solved any of the problems, shoot me a message in the comment section or through my email. I will be more than happy to make a supplementary video for that. If you have not subscribed to the channel right now, please do subscribe so that you can help the growth of this channel. And I will be seeing you in the next video.